Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an Elden Ring video. Yes, that's right, I'm going to be talking about the new DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, and let me tell you, it is hard. But is it too hard? Well, I'm going to explain why I think it might be a little bit, depending on your playstyle. Now, just some background, I've played basically every Souls game. Demon Souls I've touched a little bit, but I've never really full dived into it. Bloodborne again, I've barely touched really. But Dark Souls 1 to 3, I've played all three, finished all three, a couple of them multiple times. And then I also played Elden Ring when it initially came out, played it for a month straight, got to the final boss and never actually finished the game. But I am a very casual player when it comes to these kind of games. I'm in no way good at them, as is evident here. But I do really enjoy them. I love the world, I love the lore, I love the look, the atmosphere, the music is on point. The Souls games are solid video games, and they have a reputation for being hard, but its latest DLC, Shadow of the Erdtree, is said to be too hard. And I'm not gonna lie, I did hesitate to get it because of that reason, because I wasn't sure if I was ready to full dive into basically a torture fest. But after playing Elden Ring again after so long, I decided to warm up with Millennia. And if I beat her, then I would buy the DLC and attempt it. Because I know the DLC revolves around Miquella, and Millennia was Blade of Miquella, right? That whole thing. Something about a brother, I think it is. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm fairly sure Miquella is her brother. So I thought, I'll finish this boss. Then if I manage to do the hardest boss in Elden Ring, as per a lot of people's opinion, I will buy the DLC. And eventually I did beat Millennia, so I decided to pick it up. I also had to do Moog, the Lord of Blood, and that was relatively fine.
Is mine and mine alone.
It took me a couple of attempts, but I eventually got there. But what waited for me on the other side, I wasn't prepared for. Initially, I was like, oh yeah, stroll through the woods, very beautiful scenery, loving the look of the DLC already, and then I got to its first boss, and I got thrashed multiple times. Now, the game does have ways of making it a bit easier in the DLC. It has DLC-specific blessings that you can use to basically boost yourself and the people that you summon in, or your mimics or whatever, which gives the ability for those that are struggling or maybe aren't leveled properly yet for the DLC but want to experience it that a bit easier of a time. And I will admit, I have used these. I didn't initially. I wanted to wait to see if I could actually do the first boss without using these, just to see the difference. I'm not sure I noticed a huge difference when I eventually did use them. I attempted this boss many a time, eventually had to use a mimic and a summon, but I did get there eventually. And it really set the tone for the rest of the DLC. I've finished the second boss now, and that was even more of a struggle in my opinion. At least for me. I'm not very good at these games. I won't admit to be. I don't try hard these kind of games. I'm very casual. I just want to get through them, have some fun. Hence why I use mimics, summons, whatever I can get my hands on to basically make the game easier, because I just want to experience it. But I don't mind the struggle. It's extremely satisfying when I kill a boss for the first time, whether on my own or with help. You know, there's some base game bosses that I beat on my own, and I really enjoyed those. But is Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree too hard? Absolutely depends on your playstyle. For me, I haven't found it as hard because I'm using things that are given to me, game mechanics that are there to help me, like the mimics, like the summons, like the blessings in the Shadow Realm. But for a lot of people, I think they like to play on their own. They like to struggle on their own. They like to have that challenge, to basically come out the other end being like, I did this without any help, without any assistance. And I think those people are probably struggling the most. But at the same time, if that's your playstyle, is that not what you're there for an absolute slogfest? Miyazaki and the rest of the team at From Software were like, let's ramp it up. And they might have ramped it up a bit too much. And don't get me wrong, so far I'm loving the DLC. I'm having so much fun with it. I'm loving the environments, the bosses, and everything to do with this so far. But it's clear that a lot of people are really struggling with this DLC and either don't want the help or don't want to use it because that's not how they play the game. They want to play the game their own way, their own play style, and that might not involve mimics, summons, and other things that might help you. So of course those people are allowed to be frustrated with how hard this DLC is. I think at the same time, Elden Ring was a lot of people's first Souls-like game. It was their entryway into this series. Dark Souls in the past was a lot more of a niche. Of course, it had this reputation for being extremely hard, and you had to sort of be a little bit hardcore to actually delve into the games. But as the series has gone on, I'd say that the series has got a bit easier, especially for those that are wanting to pick it up and get into it for the first time. From Software have made these games more palatable for the general public. for your average gamer. And I wouldn't be surprised if people have only played Elden Ring, haven't actually played any of the other Dark Souls games, haven't played Bloodborne, haven't played Demon Souls. Would not be surprised if this is their first game and only game from Software. And of course, a lot of people loved it. It got Game of the Year when it came out. Beat God of War Ragnarok, for God's sake. So when a new DLC comes out for something like this, a lot of people are excited. They want to play it. It's absolutely massive, by the way. Like, this thing is $60 Australian, but there's a lot of content here. So of course, that's even more enticing for people to pick it up. They pick it up. They enjoyed the base game. It was at a comfortable difficulty level for them. DLC comes along and is like, I'm going to break your back. And I think that was jarring for a lot of people. Right now, the DLC is mixed on Steam, and the main complaint is it's too hard. I will also say it has some performance issues. I had a few frame drops, terrain popping in and out, which was a little disappointing. I'd expect a little more polish at this point, but that just seems to be gaming in 2024. And I think this DLC having that reputation of being too hard for a lot of people is stopping people from picking it up. It's hurting sales for them. Now, it got absolutely nuts review scores. It actually beat Witcher 3 Blood and Wine for best expansion, best DLC for a game in terms of review scores. And I think a lot of those reviews came from people that are wanting this experience, that are wanting that difficulty, that are well versed in these kind of games, and have probably played a lot more Elden Ring than most people. But I will say I've clocked in about 90 hours into Elden Ring before playing this DLC, and I have picked it up after not playing the game for so long. I don't think I actually played it since it came out. I looked when I downloaded Elden Ring again, and it actually said March 17th, 2022 was the last time I played the game. So I obviously played it for a month straight, got to the final boss, and never beat it, which I find hilarious, by the way. And once I finish this DLC, I will actually go and finish the main game. I have experienced the final boss, I just never beat it. And then something must have come along and distracted me, and I never picked it up again. So I'm 2 years out of the loop on Elden Ring, coming into one of its hardest expansions ever in terms of the franchise. And whilst I am finding enjoyment with it, I think the people that are saying it's too hard are justified, but there's so many variables when it comes to something like this, a player's experience with a game. People will have varying skill levels. Myself, I'm probably below average when it comes to your skill level in Elden Ring and Dark Souls games. So I don't mind using summons and mimics and just sort of putting up with the way I play. I'm also not a kind of guy to rage at video games, really. If I've had enough or I get frustrated, I'll just pop it down, have a break, play something else, watch something else, do something else, whatever, and come back to it later. But I know for a lot of people that are hardcore fans of Elden Ring, we're so keen for this DLC, and I'm probably a little disappointed that the difficulty level is so high that they can't experience what they've been looking forward to for so long. And whilst this is an astonishing expansion and DLC, and there's so much content to digest here, the bosses are actually really cool so far. I've enjoyed the 2 that I've done in the DLC. I've enjoyed the areas that I've gone through. They are a little bare bones in some areas. There's not a whole lot when it comes to actually going between bosses, but the DLC gives you plenty of areas to just marvel at in terms of looks and atmosphere and the music. The boss music for both boss fights I've experienced have been awesome. And I would say that this DLC has way more positives than negatives, but obviously its biggest negative is the difficulty level. And for a lot of people, that will mean that they won't play it, that they'll stop playing it, and that will be disappointing because they can't play something that they paid money for, quite a lot of money, for a DLC expansion. For reference, it's the same price as Helldivers 2, and I think if you're paying that kind of money for what is basically Elden Ring 1.5 because of its size and magnitude, then of course you're going to be a little disappointed if you can't make it further in because you're stuck, or it's not fun because you're getting absolutely thrashed. And some people don't find enjoyment in that. They don't want to struggle. But then on the flip side, you've got the hardcore fans that are absolutely loving the difficulty level, that are loving how hard it is, that they're actually being challenged. Because I know a lot of hardcore Souls players probably were a little disappointed with the difficulty of Elden Ring, found it a little too easy. So then they have a DLC to match their playstyle where they enjoy the struggle and they enjoy the difficulty. So whilst I do actually recommend picking up the DLC if you're a fan of Elden Ring and you just want more of it, perfect expansion / DLC for you. But be warned, it is extremely difficult. And depending on how you like to play, you might find more struggle than most. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of the new Elden Ring DLC, if you picked it up, or maybe there's a reason you haven't picked it up and it's similar to what I've already discussed here in this video. Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe for more Elden Ring content. I might do another video on this after getting further into the game, into the DLC. Like I said, I've only done 2 bosses And as you can see in this video, I struggled a lot. So subscribe for more if you want to see more. Become a member today if you want to support me in another way. You'll get early access to videos and live streams. And thank you so much for watching this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!